Hey Brian, how are you doing?
It's great to see you, Eggman. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's almost the end of the year, so you guys must be very busy.
Yes, we're getting there. It's almost Halloween, and then next thing you know, it's you get over here. It's like there's only 3 weeks of work until Thanksgiving. And then when Thanksgiving gets done, there's only a couple weeks of work before holidays. And then you come back from the holidays, and there's only a few weeks of work before Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, whichever you want to call it. So while there's technically a lot of time on the calendar, not as much time as we'd like to actually get things done. Things do not get done as quickly as we'd like this time of year.
Yeah, it's always like that with the holidays, especially when you have so much product that you want to be finished by the end of February when those factories close.
No, the factories close at the end of January.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes.
And then they're closed for the month of February, basically, usually. Sometimes it's a little bit into February and a little bit into March, but for the most part, you can just assume that you lose the month of February. So everybody gets this crush to get out at the end of January, and then nothing happens in February. The factories are at 50% capacity in March, 75% in April, and 100% capacity back in May as they try to get workers to come back.
So with them coming back now, we just ended a few weeks ago that massive thing that you displayed so proudly there at ComiCon and PowerCon. Tell me, how do you feel about Cat's Lair and how everything went?
It went great. It went great. Obviously, we'll come down to the wire a little bit on a few things, but that's the way any crowdfund, I think, goes at this point, is everybody waits till the last day to buy in. But no, it went great. I'm really excited about it. I think people are going to be really excited when they get it. We're moving really fast on it. Like they're in we were talking 2 days ago to one of our guys that's in China right now that we can be back in China, and he was looking at engineering outputs on it already. Like it's moving very quickly. It's going to be awesome.
Because I saw your website status update. It keeps showing that the date for its release is going to be October next year. So everything should be on track for that.
Yeah, so if it's releasing in October, that means it's shipping out of the factory in August. So,
Correct.
That's
fast.
It's actually pretty darn fast, actually. I'm not going to say we're going to be earlier, but we're moving. We're ahead of schedule at the moment.
Okay, fantastic.
But something's always going to slow down. I don't know where. Something somewhere is going to slow down.
It's fine. It's fine. Tell us, the figure that ended on the website was 4,223. Did that include all of the other international figures from other retailers, or is that just the final figure it ended on?
It's pretty close. I think there are a few additional units that came through, but it's not thousands of units. It would be at most a couple hundred. There was definitely, I think, not a week or so after close where a couple people came back and was like, maybe I would need 10 more of those, in certain other countries and stuff like that. But it's pretty close. It's pretty close.
Okay. So not 5,000 close.
Not 5,000 close.
Okay, we'll get to that.
I know where you're going with this line of questioning. I know where you're going. Yeah, everybody's like, when am I going to get astral projection? I'm like, well, that's a good idea. Maybe we'll figure out a time to do it.
So that's on the cards. Possibly. Huh? It's on the
cards. I mean, obviously we sampled it up. It's pretty cool. It's a neat thing. It's not necessarily for, you don't need it for everyone. So I think we'll try to find a time and a place to bring that one out. So I think it seemed like people like the idea of that figure.
Yes. So what I wanted to just check with you, the key of Thundera, obviously this is the early backer and well, I got it. I pre-ordered in time. Are you going to venture into other similar life-size objects from the ThunderCats universe that you might do with something else? Have you thought of that?
I mean, I've thought about all sorts of stuff. That doesn't mean it's remotely reasonable. I think there's already, at least at the fan level, a lot of people making sort of life-size props of like, the Sword of Omens and stuff like that. So I don't necessarily think that it's something that we're jumping into right away. Granted, if you've got some great harebrained idea that no one's ever thought of that would sell like hotcakes, I'm all for it, Eggman. But at this time, I'm not in the business of making prop replicas, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, just I know that there are quite a number of people that have the licenses for that and customs that are being made for the Sword of Omens, like you said. But this was like nobody has ever made a key of Thundera at this scale. So this was quite unique. So if there's something similar that you might throw in with like Mamra's Doom or something like that playset in the future, we're all for it.
You never know. You never know.
Okay, so
life-size claw shields for everyone. Let's go.
Okay. The box art, we haven't seen that yet. Are you planning to show it off soon?
I don't know exactly how soon, but we did confirm that Jason Edmiston will be painting it. So if nothing else, we know that it's going to be the most sick painting ever, dude. It's going to be rad. Jason did an amazing job on the painting for Snake Mountain, and I expect nothing less than perfection from him for Cat Slayer.
Okay, awesome. So the last time we spoke, you said that there might be the layer might be shipping in 2 boxes. Is it still
for sure in 2 boxes? Yes, okay. For sure. 2 smaller boxes are cheaper to ship than 1 giant box.
Okay. Now
they're still expensive to ship. Let's not get around that at all.
Okay, we're talking about boxes now. So this is something that a lot of people have been asking. It seems that in recent developments, you've done away with the brown mailer boxes, and there was a release without a sleeve. What is your thoughts on? Was there a reason that you guys decided that? Was it just costs?
There's a couple things that are going on there. So first, obviously, as everybody watches the world inflation rise, costs never go down, ever. They only ever go up. And one of the things, as ultimates go, they slowly creep up and get more and more expensive. And, we have to look tighter and tighter about how much stuff comes with everything and what we're doing and et cetera, et cetera. But as we really looked at around a bunch, what we realized, though, was that for the most part, no one uses the boxes or the sleeves. So if you're talking about a retailer that sells ultimates, they always put them on shelf without the boxes and the sleeves. If you look at collections, even people that are mint and box collectors, they take off the sleeve so you can see the figure, and then they put the sleeve in the closet, and the shipping box goes away as well. So we just kind of, have been looking at it, and it's like, in a lot of cases, it's like, rather than say, let's cut down on plastic or let's cut down on paint apps or any number of other things, it's like, by removing the parts that seemingly get used very little, they're wonderful when you get it, because you get the brown box and you get to pull it out and take it out of the bag, and then you get the beautiful slip case, and it's so much fun. But it's like, that cost doesn't ever get reused, ever used again. So it depends on which figures you're talking about, but for a lot of them, it's like, all right, the easiest thing to do is just say, it's not just the easiest, but it's just in looking to keep things without having to raise prices. Like, is the slipcase vanity on our side at this point versus necessity? It's like, yes, they're beautiful, I love them. Are they really that necessary? I don't know that they are. So we sort of were looking at that as, like, quite frankly, so much of the stuff is drop shipping straight from us. We know we will pack it. Like, the point of the brown mailer box is to make sure that the other box doesn't get dinged up. But If you're buying it from us and we're shipping it, it's not getting dinged up. If it's coming in a master carton, that's a set from the factory, it's already coming in an extra box. And if you're buying it from us, or if you're buying it from another retail partner and you're buying the set, it's going to come in a master box already. So it's like we have a master box with a brown box with a sleeve to get to the protective box to get to the toy. And it was like, all right, we may have too much packaging in here. And if it saves the dollar that we need to save on the figure to get it done correctly, then that's where we ended up. I maybe overtalked that, but that's roughly how we landed at it.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I've got a cupboard full of boxes, and I have had to make the tough decision. And I know there's people writing blogs about this with regards to, do you keep your boxes? What do you do with your boxes? Do you throw them away? And I had to throw my turtle boxes away because there just wasn't any more space. But what are your thoughts on keeping these things, boxes? You as a collector yourself, what do? Do you keep your boxes? Do you chuck them away? Because we know the vintage art was like super special, but what are your thoughts on this?
It's torturous because we have all been trained as toy collectors, because the vintage packaging is in such low supply that we need to keep all the packaging. Secondly, I go out of my way to make sure that my packaging is as beautiful as the toys. But at the same time, like, what do you do? I mean, over here in the corner, do you see it? It's just a stack of cardboard boxes. It's a stack of shipper boxes just sitting there. I can't throw them away. It makes it, but it's like, I should just, I mean, literally, it's a stack. Look, here's a stack of empty shipper boxes, but they have a logo on it. I gotta keep it.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's a difficult conversation. The reality of it, if you're talking about it at a holistic level as a toy collector, the reason vintage packaging is so expensive and carries such a premium is because it wasn't saved, or especially wasn't saved in good condition. The fact is, with most modern collectibles, like the stuff that we make, nearly everybody that buys it keeps the package. So therefore, the package is not really a financial premium any longer. But as somebody that loves all this stuff, there's, whether it's worth money or not is sort of intangible, not intangible, it doesn't mean anything. But when I hold it, I feel something. So when I grab that box and it's got the logo, I'm like, but it's got the SilverHawks logo. Like, I need it. Like, it could be Kleenex and I'd be like, I might have to buy it. You know, what am I going to do with it? I don't know. But so I don't have the best answer, or not the best gauge. I find it very difficult to get rid of any of this stuff, especially because if we're talking about my stuff, we spent time trying to make it cool, trying to make it beautiful. But at the same time, it's like, how many bins of empty boxes can I have in the garage? It's definitely tricky, because I very much am like, you need to take it out of the package. You need to bend the arms and play with it and twist the ankles. I mean, look, I mean, it's Dead Optimus. If you haven't done this yet, like, have you lived? Like, I don't
Exactly.
know. Like,
Exactly.
yeah. So, how do I feel about it? I felt that in the greater scheme of things, reducing some of our packaging was the least impactful option to the product that we make.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you.
I took it all the way back around. Do you see that?
Yes, yes. That's awesome. Okay, so you've just started shipping out Ghost Jaga and the Reptilians.
Yes.
So we've finally got some new action figures in hand. I'm waiting for mine to get to this side of the world. But
yours might be there, what, a month later, 2 months later?
yeah, just a month usually.
What?
It's torture. I can tell you, it's torture, but it's fine. It's fine.
Those reptilians
So far,
are big boys. They're big boys.
yes,
You're
I
gonna
can
love 'em.
imagine. The reception that Ghost Jaga has gotten so far has been superb. People are going crazy because this is the version of Jaga a lot of them wanted. Because obviously we knew him as a kid, as in the toon as a ghost.
Yeah.
A lot of people missed out on him. Do you ever consider doing a second run of things like this that has such a good reception? I mean, with Wave 1 you did that. Are you thinking of doing another one, especially because he was limited?
I'm not thinking of it yet because obviously there's a lot of people that don't even have it in hand yet. So I don't know how many people bought 3 so they could sell 2 later, or any of our partners that might have bought some that haven't sold through. Usually what we do is we sort of give it time to breathe. If we get to a point where 6 months from now, a year from now, Ghost Jaga is selling for $300, then maybe we should be making it again. But if it's like Ghost Jaga $65, $75 instead of $55, there's probably not enough people that need it for me to do another production run. And I'm not saying that it's like my job obviously is to sell as many toys to as many people as possible within reason. And that my job isn't to make it difficult to collect this. That said, there is a certain point where it's like I can't just remake everything for everybody all the time just because they missed it. It's like I'd really appreciate it if you could help buy it when it comes out, because that makes it so that I can move on to the next product. We'll just sort of see. I mean, Ghost Jaga has had a very good reception so far. People seem to be really pumped on Ghost Jaga. There may be a time and place where we bring him back, but it's not in the cards as of right now. But like I said, you don't even have yours in hand yet. I can't start talking about making a second run when you haven't even been able to put that little yellow glowy hand on yet.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. So tell me now, with the reptilians, you obviously use the main buck for Slive and then add it on just so that you can do something else with and make it the reptilians of that. So there are obviously other mutants as well that have the more generic versions, like Jackalman and Monkian. If you were to redo that, I know Jackalman specifically, you don't own the sculpt because that was with the Mattel factory. So you're going to have to redo that. Isn't that true?
I think we ended up retooling a bunch of stuff on that. May not look like it, but I think we did. I can't remember where we netted out with him, because we were just going through this on a different character the other day about what parts we own and what parts were other people's parts, because we would have to remake parts sometimes if, depending on factory schedules, it made more sense for us to retool and just remake certain things, and it starts to get very convoluted. Some of that early tooling, we've actually got duplicates of certain parts and things. Like sometimes I know with one of them, we ended up making an extra couple parts twice so that it could just inject twice as fast. Literally if we can shave 6 weeks off the schedule by doubling up on tooling. And it's like, then it became on our side a thing of if we pay this extra money on tooling, I can save this many weeks for the production. Is that a cost trade-off that we want to make? So I think we at least own part of it, if not all of it, but I would have to go back and check.
Okay, because the reason I'm asking.
Sorry,
you can continue.
I'm jumping ahead, but it's like I hadn't. We talked at one point about what about making army builders for all mutants, but we have not talked about it since. Probably mostly because we hadn't even delivered reptilians at this point. Okay.
Now the reason I'm asking that is because when you have a buck, you need to justify the cost for this character, and then find ways to give different versions or fun variants or things like that, like you've done with Lino. which I've loved every single version of him. So the LJN version of Jackalman, for example, he's a definitely justified variant because he looks so different. I know that was the discussion we had of the some LJN toys look a lot like their Toon counterparts. So if that is something we do hope to see Jackalman, in the future, LJN or Army Builder or whatever you want to do. So the reason why I'm talking about the variants, and so far we have not seen a variant of Panthro. Is there any plans for you guys to give us something else of Panthro? We've got one for all of the main adults so far.
There's nothing on the immediate list. And I don't think I'd ever sat down and been like, have we done everybody? I'll be honest, in saying that I don't have anything off the top of my head, but it's definitely worthy of checking back in on. Definitely worthy of checking back in on.
Okay. So we're checking on Wave 10 now. That's upcoming. It's supposed to be in the next few weeks.
It's been pushed out a little bit because Ghost Jaga's not in people's hands. Reptilians are not in people's hands. I like people to get their other orders before we ask them to buy the next order. And we had kicked it out. We'd said, all right, when are people going to have everything in hand? And it's going to be like late November. And then, it'll be middle of November before everybody gets everything. Like you won't have yours for another few weeks at least, right? While a lot of people have their Ghost Jagas already, they're just starting to get Reptilians, and so then it's all right. This is where the sales teams really come in. Just like if we launch the pre-order in middle to late November and it ends essentially right at Christmas, it's just not going to do well. It's just not. That is the worst time to ask people for money. Hey, Christmas is coming up. Would you like to buy a bunch of ThunderCats?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. But
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
I believe that the newest schedule now is that it would go up right in the beginning of January. That way everybody can get this wave. They can get the Reptilians. And I think, I don't know.
And she thought
I thought there was another wave that then the newest wave of SilverHawks would come in as well by then.
And then Wave 7 is scheduled for January to be released in January. Wave 7.
Yeah.
The one with Snarf.
There's a lot of stuff that's shipping like right now and next month and in early December. Like there's an absurd amount of ultimates that are landing over the next 60 days. We've caught up on a lot of stuff. And I think it's, there's definitely a bit of like, let's get all this stuff in people's hands and then start over again. So the next wave of ThunderCats, I believe, is now going to be January, just to make sure everybody gets what they paid for first. And then SilverHawks would be in February.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you have any teasers that you can give us of Wave 10?
Do I have any teasers I can give you of Wave 10? Hold on. I'm just going to peek real quick if I've got this thing listed out. I don't have it listed out in this document. I have it listed out in a different document. All right, that's a whole lot of me talking to myself saying I don't have the answer for you right here. Am I going to give you a teaser? We will give you some teasers in the future. But it's I don't know. I don't want to get ahead of myself. People have asked me some obvious questions, which are, who's gonna build this castle? Stuff like that. So, there's stuff like that. you know.
Okay, that says quite a lot. That's fantastic. I won't say it because if they don't know ThunderCats, then they're really not collectors. So I won't say who you're talking about. But that's awesome.
You know, it's a good solid wave, and I think then the wave that's after that's really good. So I think that there's some cool stuff coming up. There's some really cool stuff coming up. I mean, here I'm gonna go into. I need to double. I'm starting to plan 2025 right now, so my brain on like what's happening in late 23, early 24 is complete mush. Complete mush.
That's
but then
fine.
again, there's a whole bunch of people in here that would probably argue it was already there.
Tell me, Brian, is these next
So wave
waves?
10 is not, sorry, I said we will get burbles in the future, but burbles is not in wave 10.
Okay.
But wave 10 has some cool you're gonna like wave 10. You're gonna like wave 10.
Okay.
I think we've got a couple bangers and a really, really out of left field one where you're like, I did not see that one coming. Did not see that one.
Okay, that's awesome. Tell me, are these waves, do they have LJN versions in there as well, or are they strictly Toon?
This one is strictly Toon. Wave 10 is strictly Toon. Wave 11 is strictly Toon. But there's some LJN stuff in your future.
Okay, that's exciting. That's exciting. Okay, cool. So talking about in the future,
and what's going to happen is that I don't realize that whenever I look to this other screen, it's actually showing you the screen. If it did, you would probably be like, "What?" But so I know that's not true.
No, don't worry. Talking about the future, you announced at PowerCon that there's a special project for ThunderCats next year at ComiCon.
Yes, there is.
Is this, I know you can't say much about it, but has this got to do with a booth, or has this got to do with an item, or something?
It's an item. It's an item. It's an item. It's cool.
Will it be available immediately, or is it going to be a pre-order?
Look, no, it will be in stock, ready to go. We will sell it at the show, and obviously we'll save some for online as well, but it is an in-stock item.
Okay, that's exciting. Then we also touched on Snow Meow, which is one of the larger items that you said.
Which you'll never stop asking me about. One day.
No, I'm moving on. I'm moving to the Mad Bubbler. That's like another oversized figure. And also the Astral Mode monsters, those bigger characters that we had in the vintage toy line. Would you consider doing things like that as well? And what would they be based on? Because like the Mad Bubbler, there was a prototype for that that came out that was all yellow. It wasn't like actually in the toon that was green.
Yeah.
What would you think would be the best direction to go in? Would you do what people remember as the prototype or as the toon? Because I know you say a lot that when we were kids, we watched the cartoon one day, but the rest of the day we were playing with the toys. So there's always that.
Yeah, but at the same time, none of you got to play with that toy, so you don't have that same, emotional attachment to it. I hate to sound cagey and coy. It's like I'd love to get to all of it, but it's funny because when you start getting into this level of ThunderCats, and you're pretty you're pretty deep down the well, all of a sudden it's like, well, it could be any one of these 40 ideas. Which one is higher or lower on the scale than the others? There's not a whole lot of like up and down, you know what I'm saying? It's they're all kind of equal to a degree. And you can find a reason to justify one over the other pretty easily. So I think in some ways where we've gone with some of this is just us saying like, okay, I really like that guy, or Josh going, I love that guy. A perfect example is is Spinner, right? Josh loves
Top
Spinner, and
spin,
I'm like, I can't go there with you, man. I just can't. You know, so we argue about stuff like that, where it's like, oh man, like he's like, we gotta do Spinner. And I'm like, let's pick this guy instead. So we have to have those conversations, you know. And so when you're talking about Mad Bubbler, the Astro Monster, or the moment I would name any of these other names, it's because they're top of mind because they're coming. So I can't use those names, you know, and be like, oh, okay, well, what about that guy? So there's a bunch of cool stuff. I mean, Snow Meow is a perfect example of something that I think at one point we do want to try to get to. It'll probably have to be more of a crowdfundy kind of thing, but you know, you run into this sort of the hesitation for me is like, okay, I go, if I'm going to make a Snow Meow, the only people that can buy a Snow Meow are people that already have Snowman of Hook Mountain. So I'm already starting with a very small, certain size group of people, you know, and how many of those people are going to cross over? Is that enough? And there's just, is that enough to justify it? So it'll probably end up having to be sort of like, even though it's not, you know, this big, and it would still have to be this big, it would still have to be some sort of like a crowd-funded Snow Meow, rather
that
than
makes
like what
sense.
we did with Mandoran or Electrocharger. You know, it's like I'm selling you that figure, and or maybe I should say, hey, if I'm making Snow Meow, you can also buy Snowman of Hook Mountain again. But
Yes,
I mean, I haven't been to eBay this week. Like, can you still buy Snowman of Hook Mountain, or is he expensive on the secondary market? I don't know.
I haven't seen
You
it.
know,
I don't. I just look at
if I
mine.
find if huh?
I just
That's
have
the
a
whole
look at
thing.
mine.
It's like, you know, I also have to be cognizant. Like if I go and go right now on Entertainment Earth or Big Bad Toy Store or Diamond or Alliance, you can buy a Snow Meow for $55 still, or 65. I can't remember if he was 60. He was 55, I think.
55, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, if you can still buy him from those people, then there's no reason for me to remake him. But if it's like, no, he's gone and you can't get him, should I make it available? It becomes this complex web of how often can you release something? What do people already have? What are they willing to pay for? What do they not need? Also mixed with how much does it cost to simply get a tool back into a machine and get production running again? And you know, there's definitely hurdles that you have to get over just to get the thing started. It's sort of like the analogy, and I'm going to say this analogy because I know it, but 99% of the people have never run a printing press. But the cost for printing anything is not the cost to print it. The cost is to get the machine running. Like you've got a giant 4-color press with inline varnish or whatever. I mean, they're like 200 feet long. Get them up, get the color balance, get everything right. That takes an hour. And you burn through 10,000 sheets of paper to print 1,000. The cost for the ink on the paper is actually negligible, but the cost is just getting the machine up and running. That's where, so same thing here. Like there's an inherent cost to just getting the tooling out of the tooling thing, you know, wrenched up with cranes, pulled over the machine, launched in the machine, getting the plastic in, getting it to the right temperature, getting it melting properly, and getting it going. That part takes sometimes, if it's a small run, just as long as actually making the toy. And then you got to take it out, clean out the machine, take out all the plastic. Like that part ends up becoming half the hurdle sometimes.
Yeah, the process remains the same. It's
Yeah.
whether you're doing 1 or 10,000, you still have to get it there.
There's a question here I'm surprised you haven't asked me. Because I
Oh,
got asked
yes.
a whole bunch on social media about it, but you didn't ask. I'm very surprised.
What haven't I asked yet?
I got asked by many people on social media, why is Jaga wearing a belt? And why does the Ghost Jaga
Oh,
have
I
a
know
belt?
why. I know. I don't know. I don't see why people, because there's 2 versions of him in the cartoon. in the cartoon, there's a section where he's got the belt on, and there's a section where he doesn't have the belt on. So that was quite obvious.
Yes,
Maybe
he's
it's obvious to me.
wearing it when he fights Groon in the Star of Thundera.
Yes, that's part of the
There you go.
episode.
I had a lot of people ask me. They were like, "Why has he got a belt? Regular Groon didn't have the belt. I mean, regular Jaga doesn't have the belt."
Yes. Yeah, well,
See?
they need to go and rewatch. Sorry, Brian. I'm familiar with that episode. I recognized it immediately when you showed it.
I was ready. I was ready because people had prepped me on social media, and then you just left me in the cold because you're just too much of an expert, Eggman.
No. Well, now I'm so sorry, Brian. I need to go and ask around what people want to know. It's fine. Listen, Brian. I carrying on where we were. Like with the back to the Mad Bubbler. Now, obviously, this is a character that made bubbles. Do you think that some of the ThunderCats characters could fit in some of your other product types? Like you've got the Super Soapies. Would that be something that a shape like the Mad Bubbler would work for, or something like a Super Cyborg? I mean, you just did the Krang android body. Is there something that ThunderCats could fall into on those other lines?
I mean, it's not that I'm opposed to it. It's just more when and where it makes sense. Like to a degree, ThunderCats has more vehicles and elaborate play sets than most of the other lines that we're making. You know, we say that and you're like, all right, well, what about Krang? It's like, well, they got a turtle van, and but they don't have a play set and they don't have this. Like, I think it's usually more like doesn't really make sense. The soapies are a whole different beast because that's more of a labor of love than anything else. Like, you know, this isn't one of those things where people are like, oh, wow, you know, hey, I love those. You know, you're kind of talking to a very small audience of people that were like, nope, I collected the monster ones. I love them. They're wacky and they're weird. And they're almost people that collect these are very close to the people that collect like advertising figures and stuff like that. You know, it's a different crossover, but it crosses over really heavily with monster collectors. But outside of that, I'm like, if I made a Lion-O like this, I think a lot of people would just be like, not sure I need that. But that could be just me. I could be very.
No, that makes sense. I understand your reasoning.
Very wrong. And so it's like I'll push monsters into here where ThunderCats, it's like, no, they need a play set, you know, a giant play set. Where
Yes.
For Universal Monsters, do you need a giant play set? There's not really an iconic play set for each one of them, you know?
You can leave the tomb for Mamra. We'll do the pyramid and all of that for Mamra.
Yeah. You've mentioned this before, you know.
Yes.
I'm not.
I'll bring it up again next time.
I will bring it up every time. I will bring it up multiple times today.
Okay. No, that's okay. I just talked about the Krang's body. So I know you mentioned recently that with Turtles, you are going to do 2003 Toon ones in the near future.
Yes.
And we've touched on the 2011 ThunderCats a while back. But you've moved from cartoon to toy, and then the same with SilverHawks. You've offering cartoon versions and then also the vac metal toy versions. Is this something that you might, with ThunderCats at the moment, you've got both the LJN and the cartoon versions. Would you introduce a third version if you feel that you are done with a certain aspect of the line, that you're retiring the toon side of it, for example?
I think if we felt like that there was a huge groundswell for that and people were like, we really want those, we don't have those. I think right now, at least the feedback I get is that there's still so many ThunderCats characters that haven't been touched yet, like core 80s characters, that's where we should be staying for now. But I'm not opposed to it. I just think that right now there's still so much to do in the classic, animation that has not been touched.
Oh yes, there's quite a lot of characters. I mean, there's so many episodes with one-off appearances. So there's like lots.
there's so many characters that you think of as being very ancillary, and then when you go back, you're like, no, this guy was everywhere, or this gal was everywhere, and you're like, how did we wait so long to make this one? And I think that I think there's going to be a couple of those where people are like, yeah, why did that take so long?
Well, talking about the future for Thundercats, now you dropped a massive bombshell with our last interview, announcing that TigerSharks is joining the ranks in
Yes.
Q1 of 2025. How is things going with that? Have you started anything yet? Was it only next year?
We've got preliminary concept stuff, but I mean, obviously, it's a ways away still. But gonna get some TigerSharks one of these days.
Okay, and will it follow the same formula of waves of 4?
Yeah, that's how we're planning on doing it. Yes.
And they will be cartoon based. They won't be toy based, or is that something
Cartoon.
for later on?
Cartoon based to start. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if people demand toy versions. Right now, it's all animation.
Okay. So talking about toy based, moving on to the other part of this universe, the SilverHawks Wave 4. They came out with these vac metal version that you worked on so hard and so long in secret, trying to get it right.
Yes.
And they're coming in January, as you said. The reaction from the public, was it what you expected?
Are you leading me? Yeah. I was surprised. I think people liked them, but people did not buy into them like we expected them to do. They did not. They did okay. That was it. Like it was quite a bit underwhelming for how long we'd worked on it and how much people had talked about how much that was what they wanted, not what we gave them. That when we finally got it in front of them, they're like, yeah, I don't need that. I'm like, okay. You know, I was surprised, but you know, it is what it is.
Does that affect the future of the other characters in vac metal or toy versions of them?
You know, I mean, right now we're, you know, the next wave is going to be cartoon. There's a couple other characters that should be, you know, vac metal at some point now that we know how to do it. But I'm not feeling like I need to sprint to them, if that makes any sense. Like we'll get there. We'll do a few of them, knowing that they're going to be kind of small variants, if you will. You know, they're almost more like that convention exclusive kind of point of view at this point. That's how I regard them.
Okay. Are there any other big developments for SilverHawks in the sky?
Not any big developments in the sky right now. You're like, come on, give me birds. Give me spaceships. Give me something. I want to tally how I want it all. Like, no, not right. I feel like that customer is very ThunderCats, SilverHawks, they're analogous, obviously. In terms of most of the customers. Like we just got done with the Cat's Lair. We're going to work on that for a while. Like for me to come back to that same person and say, here's yet another thing, I think it'd be a bit remiss at this point.
Okay.
Like
makes sense.
Yeah.
We'll wait for next year.
Yeah.
After October.
You got to save your money. After Cat's Lair, you definitely have to save your money.
That's good. That's good. We've got a year until October 2024. So tell me, with SilverHawks, you mentioned also that there is the opportunity to make reaction figures for them. Is that still in the pipeline?
Yeah, it is. It's still a ways out, but yeah, it is. Okay.
And then you've just released Wave 5 of ThunderCats Reaction with those awesome 4 variants. They were quite well received as well, especially the Ghost Jaga as well. And then
now you get your little Ghost Jaga with your big Ghost Jaga.
Yes. Now we've got 2 versions. So the next wave of new characters, that should be sometime early next year, I suppose.
Hold on. Like how I can't remember anymore. It's like, what year am I in? Hold on.
While you're looking for that, I mean, you've just got this big mothership that's on pre-order right now, so you can make awesome things, items for reaction figures. Would you consider doing something like that for ThunderCats as well?
It's not that I wouldn't consider it, is that do I think it's feasible? Vehicles and GI Joe are kind of like intertwined more than any other toy line, I think. You know, Star Wars is probably second, but they're hard. They're hard. So back to your earlier question, there's another wave of ThunderCats in May, but it's not exactly what you are asking me for. It's different than what you think it is. But there is another wave of ThunderCats of new figures and stuff. So there's a wave 7 as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, vehicles for 3 3/4 are very difficult because, quite frankly, the money that it costs to make a vehicle for 3 3/4, it's a lot. So the amount to scale it up to ultimates, it's like, yeah, it might be double, but once you've already crossed that threshold, you know, it's sort of like, I don't know, I'm making a bad analogy, but it's like if you're going to spend, you know, $400,000 on the house, what's the difference between 400,000 and 450,000, right?
Exactly.
You know, it's different. Look, let's not play that. Like, yes, it's different, but in the end, it's like the change of scale, but it's like the price and the expectation at 3 3/4 makes it very difficult to just get a vehicle done. So do I think there's enough ThunderCats buyers to support a vehicle at 3 3/4? I think it would be difficult because I think if we felt we could support more vehicles at 3 3/4, you'd probably see them in other lines. And you don't really see us making very many vehicles at 3 3/4 just because we can't move the volume that it takes to overcome the cost to make it. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So, I'm not trying to break your heart.
No, it's fine. You're going to now just change the whole tune of this conversation. You're going to please answer. Is there any? Do you want to drop another bombshell before we say goodbye?
Drop another bombshell
so that we can all go into Christmas with this fantastic news.
Fantastic news is that we've got a lot of like I have. Here's your fantastic news, right? Because I had to go look it up, right? Hold on. Right now, for Ultimates, we are scripted completely through wave 14 and are working on wave 15. So
okay, that's quite a lot still to come. That's
so you know, like I said, I'm working on 2025 right now. So, you know, there's a lot still to be done in ThunderCats. You know, so while we're all waiting for wave 10, I understand, you know, just know that 11, 12, 13, and 14 we're all actively working on already. So there's a lot to come still from ThunderCats, and I think there's some really cool stuff in there that I think you're gonna be like, oh man, I need to think about that. Oh,
okay. Well, that's definitely something to chew on until January when we get the two.
January you get 10. I think you'll get 10, 11, and 12 all in 24. Because it'll probably be January, May, September, plus San Diego, and then maybe another thing thrown in.
Okay, so there's a little something here or there.
Little something there. So
okay,
yeah, but
that's
13,
fantastic.
14, 15 is 2025. 13 and 14 are figured out. 15 we're still figuring it out. We're still arguing.
Okay, about Top Spinner.
It's not talking about it.
You need to complete the berserkers. We can have a mini wave of the 3 outstanding
Everybody's
berserkers.
you need to complete this wave. You need to complete that wave. You need to like there's a lot to complete. There's a lot to complete.
Okay.
There's a lot to complete.
Fantastic. Brian, thank you so much. It's really always a pleasure to speak to you. And I think with all the new stuff that's incoming in the next 2 years, there's quite a lot to be looking forward to. So thank you so much. And
yeah,
do you have any parting words?
Yeah, no, like I said, when I just sort of framed it all out, it's like, it's a slow, steady pace of like, like I'm not going to try to drown anybody. I'm going to try to make it as affordable as I can so that people can keep up with the line. And there's a lot of cool characters, and we're going to keep going, and it's going to be fun.
Sounds cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. And we'll catch up with you again in the new year.
Yes, definitely. Thanks as always, Eggman.
You're welcome. Take care.